Toward the end of Parshas Vayera, we read this week, we find one of the most incredibly powerful stories in all of the Torah. The story of the Akedas Yitzchak, of the binding of Yitzchak, where Avram and Sarah were married for so many years without children together. And finally one child, in their old age, Yitzchak, and Hashem tells Avram, take your precious child and bring him as a sacrifice. Imagine what's going through Avram's mind, but Avram does what Hashem tells him because he was a man of faith. And Chazal, our rabbis, teach us that this was one of the tests of Avram Avinu. He had 10 tests, and this was the last test. This test, passing this test, would show that Avram Avinu was worthy of being the founder and the foundation upon which the Jewish faith would be built. And so Avram brings his son, and they walk together. And they're going to the place, but they don't yet know what the place is. And Avram Yitzchak, as they're walking, the pasuk tells us that they see the place from afar, and Rashi explains, how did they know where the place was? Because they saw a cloud on top of a mountain. And that symbolized to them that that mountain was destined to be a special mountain. That mountain was called Har HaMoriah, and there the Akedah was to take place. As Avraham wraps his son Yitzchak, and he takes out a knife and he's about to slaughter him, Hashem calls out to Avram and says, Avram, don't touch him. Now I see that you are a man of true faith, and the Jewish nation will be built upon the foundation that you set. Ultimately, that mountain became the most important mountain in the history of the Jewish people, in that mountain is a mountain upon which the Beis Hamikdash stood. That mountain is where the third Beis Hamikdash will stand, no matter what the world says. We know that that's where the Beis Hamikdash was and where the Beis Hamikdash will be. But the question is, why there? There was also one other very significant mountain in the history of the Jewish people, and that was Har Sinai. Har Sinai was the mountain upon which God revealed himself to the Jewish people. God gave the Jewish people the Torah. So why is it that Hashem chose Har HaMoriah for the Beis Hamikdash to be built upon, as opposed to Har Sinai, which was also holy, which God gave the Torah on? So the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz Zatzal explains as follows. He says that both of these mountains, it's true, had great significance in the history of the Jewish people. But we never really hear any more about Har Sinai. We don't even know where Har Sinai is. Yet Har HaMoriah remains forever alive in our history to this day. It was the mountain upon which the Beis Hamikdash was built for the following reason. And that is, one can have Torah, but on Har HaMoriah, the Jewish people showed that they have sacrifice. That when a Jew is willing to give of themselves, that is where the Beis Hamikdash is to be built. That is where godliness comes into this world. That is where man connects with the divine. When one is willing to sacrifice of themselves, then they are able to connect to God spiritually. And says the Divrei Chaim, that's the reason why the Beis Hamikdash was built on Har HaMoriah, the place where Yitzchak was willing to sacrifice his life, the place where Avraham was ready to sacrifice his firstborn, as opposed to even Har Sinai, even the place where the Torah was given. The sacrifice of a Jew, there is nothing that can be compared to it. And in order for us to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to make sacrifices of ourselves. Not chas v'shalom for us to physically sacrifice ourselves, but to make sacrifices in our lives in order to become closer to Hashem, to make sacrifices in our lives in order to learn Torah, to make sacrifices in our lives in order to make sure that we're doing proper avoda, that we're davening at the proper times and correctly, and we're dedicating ourselves, and that we're giving of ourselves to others, that we're performing chesed, we're sacrificing our time in order to do what it is that Hashem wants from us. That's the reason why the Beis Hamikdash was built on Har HaMoriah and not on Har Sinai. Because if we learn to sacrifice of ourselves, we can truly feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our lives. May we indeed merit to sacrifice of our time and connect closer to Hashem. Thank you for listening, and good Shabbos.